Hello, everybody. There is this argument that globalization has brought us nothing, okay, but misery and pain. There are lots of people that will tell you that the reason why Africa is where it is today is because of, the introduction of globalization. So we can't exactly tell what exactly is going on in Africa. We can't tell if it was as a result of colonization, if it was as a result of, the impact of colonization in Africa. Maybe that could be the reason why we are where we are today. But then everybody has different definitions of what globalization is. But then would want to say it is the introduction of, the colonial era, or the introduction of Western culture into Africa. That should be my own very definition. So the definition is still open. You can as well define it the way you want. Hello everybody, welcome to the Lifestyle Show here on What TV. I still remember your girl and host, EJ. Thank you all very much for joining. Thank you for your love and support. Don't forget to follow the Lifestyle playlist on What TV. Like, subscribe, and keep sharing the love. Once again, you guys are welcome. Today we'll be talking about the influence of Westernization, right, in the African identity. And I have lovely people with me here in the studio that are going to be helping me talk about it. Because of course I won't be doing it myself, So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. First of all, we have the lady. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with her because she's been here before. Hello, Ma. How are you doing?
Hi, AJ. How are you doing?
I'm very well.
All right. My name is Dede Atiogbe Adeje. I am a conference interpreter, translator, and also gender activist. National president of YWCA, an NGO that promotes and educates women and empowers women and girls in the society.
Thank you so very much for coming. Her name is very long, Thank you for joining us. She looks very beautiful though. You're looking very beautiful. Thank you for coming to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And then we have Mr.
Emmanuel.
Mr. Emmanuel what?
Yeah, I'm Mr. Emmanuel Wali. I'm a student of IBOT, finalist student, a journalist in the making, and English and history tutor.
Thank you very much for coming, okay? And then we have our Dogu, our almighty Mr. Luke. I'm sorry, can you help us introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Enirine Ibis Luke, and I'm an IT specialist. I'm also a lecturer, and I'm a professional cinematographer.
Oh wow, so, that's good.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much for coming. Okay, thank you very much for at least honoring the invitation.
So you can remember my name.
Yes, of course, Mr. Luke. I know. I'm not going to forget it. All right, so I've given the definition of what globalization is. So let's just dive right into it. There's a reason why we're talking about this today, like I began saying. A lot of argument is springing up. Okay, people are talking. The reason why we are where today. It could be as a result of, the influence of colonization. We can't really tell. But then we're going to begin, and then through arguments, various arguments, of course, would then ascertain where the issue is coming from. Right? So I'll begin with, Mama, I'll start with you. I have a couple of questions for you, right? The first question, how do you define African identity, and how has Westernization impacted it?
Thank you for the question. So African identity, that concept comes from Pan-Africanism.
All right, then.
And we all know the fathers or the leaders of Pan-Africanism. We have Kwame Nkrumah, we have W.E.B. Du Bois, we have Malcolm X, and so on and so forth. So this brings the concept of cultural identities. So when we talk about African identity, it all has to do with the respect that we have towards our value, our identity as an African. So that's shortly how I can define cultural identity.
Mr. Luke, do you have any addition to this? Briefly, please.
Yeah, when we talk about our identity, I think we're just talking about our cultural values. Okay. Starting from our way of worship, our way of dressing, our way of even talking, behavioral pattern. Yeah. It has to do with everything about an African.
All right, then.
That doesn't pertain to the Western culture.
All right. Thank you very much. Any different response?
All right. When we talk about Please remind me again. Sorry.
Okay. How do you define African identity?
Okay, when we talk about African identity, we are talking about those indigenous heritage of Africa, our language, our dressing, our culture, customs, and traditions.
So how has Westernization impacted this?
Definitely, there's a different perspective to it. There's a negative aspect of Westernization to African identity, and there's a positive part of it. First of all, we have the socio-political integration. For example, the Western culture and the African culture coming together as having a blend. Okay, so when we talk about the negative impacts, Westernization has played a role in like sweeping down our own culture down the carpet. So that's what I can say about that.
All right, then. Thank you very much. Mr. Luke, I have a question for you, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that globalization brought disunity in Africa?
Well, when we talk about globalization, okay, like Mr. Emmanuel said, we have negative part of it and then we have positive aspect of it. Okay. I think we as Africans, we are not making good use of the word globalization. Okay, that is the positive aspect of it. Do you get? We are not making good use of it. What we're just doing, we are being carried away by, political agendas. You know, our leaders, in fact, when we talk about globalization and the problem of Africa, we should look at our leaders first of all, and then Africans as individuals, because we are not being sincere to ourselves. When you talk about globalization, you give a politician money to run a project, and then the politician is building a castle in his village or in his local government area, and then the people in the society are quiet about everything that is going on. So globalization has brought about improvement to Africa, but we are not making good use of it. And then some of our leaders are taking money from, the Western people that are bringing this globalization to us. They are taking, for example, you have illegal mines everywhere all over Africa.
Yes.
Okay. And then they are supposed to mine, and then we are supposed to make profit from the mine, and then we are supposed to have development. Okay. So I think there is a positive aspect of it, and then there's a negative. But in Africa, we have more negative aspect of globalization because of corruption.
All right, then. Thank you very much. Mama, do you have anything to say regarding what he said?
Yes, I bet to differ a little bit.
Yeah.
For me, I think there is a difference between Westernization and globalization.
All right, then.
Okay.
Westernization is when you adopt the
Western culture.
The Western culture.
All right.
But globalization, we are in an interwoven world of humanity.
Yes.
So it's all about. Today we talk about we are living in a global village whereby we are interconnected and we are interdependent.
Yeah.
So before, if you have to travel to Europe, you need to take the boat and you take months before you
get there.
But today, there are other means of transportation. You can take the plane, you can take the car, you can, and then you move faster and more quickly. So, what he talked about was is Westernization.
Okay.
But globalization, even though it has its negative aspect, it has also its positive aspect. I just talked about transportation,
right?
We also have communication. Today you can be in your room and cover a meeting in Europe, in any part of the world. You just need to have your internet connection, you have your devices, you just connect and then you are there.
You're good to go.
So even though it has negative aspects,
I'm sorry, can I come in? Can I come in?
Let me hear you.
Yeah, we are still on the same page. I didn't talk about Westernization. I said Westernization is all about our culture, our way of life. I'm talking about African infrastructural development. And she's talking about transportation, which is a part of it. She's talking about communication, which is a part of it.
But do you understand?
We are talking about, I understand the point. I understand her point. We are talking about Africa, development in Africa, how globalization has impacted Africa. And I'm saying because of our political leaders, we've not been able to have, a full experience of globalization. For example, we say the world is a computer village. When you come to Togo, do we have, a fast internet connection? But when you go to Europe, it's different. When you go to Nigeria, we say there is 5G, but you don't have 5G everywhere. You go to some villages, it's almost like you have to climb a palm tree to make a phone call. So we are saying Africa is not really embracing it properly because of our political leaders. So please, I think we are still on the same page.
Do you have anything to say?
Well, I don't think we are on the same level.
What is the problem here? He's confusing Westernization to globalization.
Exactly.
Okay, let me hear you.
So for what you just talked about, it is actually the consequence of Westernization. Okay. Because our leaders, because of Westernization, there is a political system that is there. Mm-hmm. And we are talking about democracy.
Yes.
The way democracy is run in Europe, they say the same thing they are doing in Africa.
Yes.
But
it is not well
done.
Mm-hmm.
That's where corruption comes in. That is where money laundering comes in.
Right.
That is where people are not treated the right way.
Okay.
So for me, it's just the concepts that need to
be well addressed.
Understand.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So can you give me one actual? Can you give me at least 2 inventions by Africans in Africa?
In Africa?
Yes, that live in Africa, grew up in Africa, that is actually helping Africa today.
I know that in Nigeria, there is a car factory.
Yes.
Made by a Nigerian. That is customized and it is operationalized. I know spare parts are also done in Nigeria. Most of the spare parts that we are using in Togo
is from Nigeria.
We have made in Nigeria, we have made in China, and then you choose.
I rep my country there.
I think she's actually. Is actually representing Nigeria. Well, we are still on the same page. I don't want to go further with this argument.
Why?
Yes.
All right. In Nigeria, they don't produce cars.
They don't produce cars.
Okay.
They only import.
Okay.
It's called innocent.
Okay.
They import the parts, then blend them together and sell. Unlike German cars, when you go there and everything is produced there, produced there, and you buy them there. But in Nigeria, they import them from other countries, then join them together in Nigeria and then sell.
And that is why those products are quite expensive.
Yeah.
The tax levy on those companies is actually high.
Are we cleared now on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So
we'll come back to this
I talked about disunity. You guys spoke to me about what's it called? The concept of Westernization and globalization. But there's a specific question that I think you guys ignored, which is disunity. Okay. So did this thing, globalization, bring about disunity? Did it bring about disunity?
All right. I would say it brought disunity. Okay. First of all, let me expatiate on what you said.
No, do not
what
you said. Okay.
You said
make
there's
it
a difference
brief.
between, there's a difference between Westernization and globalization. Of
Yes.
course, yes. Westernization means adopting to Western culture and
Like she
everything.
defined, yeah.
Okay. Now, when we talk about disunity, it has because, like you said before now, we have policy of assimilation and policy of association.
Yeah.
That means that there's a different way at which we are colonized. Indirect to and direct through.
Yeah.
So now we don't agree in Africa. All of us, like this.
We don't see ourselves. Like we don't agree. We don't see ourselves.
Yes,
we don't.
see ourselves. We don't agree on one thing. Meanwhile, is one Western ideology. For example, the policy of assimilation is coming from the
West,
French, the French-speaking country, or the policy of association is coming from the English-speaking country. And sometimes, almost all the time, we don't agree to one thing.
Okay.
So that has brought to disunity.
Do you have anything to say to that?
No, it's okay.
Okay. How about you, Mr. Luke?
I think I'll go with Mr. Emmanuel.
Okay.
I think the language is also a big factor about this disunity. Okay, when you have people speaking same language, then you have unity. For example, in Nigeria you have more than 500 languages, and then in Togo you have more than 20. I've not really done my research about Togo. In Ghana you have more than 22, and then when you go to the eastern part of Nigeria, where you have Mr. Emmanuel Umali, he will tell you I'm Igbo, so you cannot come to my land and talk to me anyhow.
Yeah.
You go to southern part of Nigeria where you have Luke, I'll tell you I'm Ijo, you cannot come from the north and talk to me anyhow. So there is disunity all over the country because that is the idea of the Western world. That is, they all have in Europe, they have French speaking countries, they have English speaking countries, they have they are grouped that way, and then when you go to the English speaking part, they're all speaking English. You will not hear, a different language. But then in Nigeria, you can move from Lagos to Abia State, and then the language will change. It's different.
Okay.
So there is a big gap. There's a big gap because of the language.
I have with regards to this language thing, right? I know it's not part of the question I sent to you guys, but then, do you think is there a way that this problem can be mitigated? This language problem, that is speaking from the government's perspective, are there things that our government or the region Africa can do to actually, put in sync the language problem as well as the rulership problem too? Do you think it's possible?
Yeah, it is possible. I'll go back to Kwame Nkrumah. In 1962, in a conference in Accra, Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah laid emphasis on the importance of language. The importance of language. Kwame Nkrumah said that it is important to teach, to put in our educational system language studies. In universities, in schools, they need to teach. Teaching the language will help Africans to actually feel that identity. We are one people. If it is maybe just Ewe that they have to teach in university or in school, like in Togo, we have Ewe that is taught in some schools, Ewe and Kabie, which are national language that are recognized. If those languages are set, they are language incorporated into the educational system, it will bring that sense of belonging. Even though we are coming from different places, we are just one nation. And there should be a policy, that is made by the government so that it becomes a law that
all schools or institutions
teach, they should select one or two languages that they could teach
and make it mandatory. Now,
sorry,
yes.
Can you suggest to us a particular language you feel they can pick? You mentioned Eve
and Kabie in Togo.
For me, I don't think it's possible.
Is it possible to have a central language in the whole of Africa?
It is very easy. It's possible, but then it's also not possible. Okay, because the West is pushing the agenda of dividing us. So, which ECOWAS committee or African Union committee are you going to set up that will all come together to agree that, okay, let us speak this language?
For example, we have Kiswahili. Kiswahili is a language that is used in Central Africa, in Rwanda, those countries as well. And it is a language of African Union today. So we have French, we have English, we have Arabic, and you have Kiswahili. And Kiswahili is taught in universities. I did my master's degree in Cameroon, and part one of the program is all Kiswahili. So I think it is doable if we as an African
decide.
We decide, to just understand one another, and then that dream, that vision of Kwame Nkrumah to have one united Africa. If we can, go in that line, then it's possible.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now, Mr. Emmanuel, I have a question for you as a student, right? We are talking about this language problem. Okay, you're being taught in English. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm speaking Igbo. You are being taught in English. Now, do you think if you're taught in, let's say, your mother tongue, you would understand how to find X today?
Yes.
When X is, like it's sort of like in quotes, in mathematics, they are like find X. So imagine you're being taught, you're using your they are using your dialect to teach you, and then you're being asked to solve a particular equation. Do you think it would be easier to solve problems in schools when you're being taught with your mother tongue or in your mother tongue? Sorry.
All right. First of all, you have to understand that mathematics is kind of Eurocentric kind of education. Okay, it's not an African thing. And before the colonizers came, we had our indigenous way of learning,
Right.
learning our English, learning our maths, and all those things. So, like I said, it's not really an African thing. You can still be educated in some kind of way without having to learn about X, having to learn about really mathematics. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Okay, now, using your mother tongue to teach you, will you understand?
Of course, I will understand.
Will you
I can-
agitate for that?
Yes, of course. I can speak my mother's tongue. I can, in as much as I'm very, very good in English. I'm also very good in my mother's tongue. I can read ABCD, every single thing I can.
So you
do in
think
English, I can do.
education will be easier if we incorporate the mother tongue into teaching?
I wouldn't be direct saying it will be easier. Of course, yes, it will be easier, but you have to balance both.
How do you balance it? I think it's the best.
No,
For Africans, it's actually the best. When you go to China, do they teach you with English?
they have English schools in China.
Do they teach with English in the factories?
English schools, they
In the
have English.
factories.
I know for a
When
fact that schools in China
when the
is-
Chinese men come over to Africa, they have to learn English all over again. But then instruction to work is in Chinese. Even in their manual, is in Chinese.
Of course,
So
but-
if you have, for example, if you have Igbos now, for example, you are from Imo State, right? If you have Igbos studying a programming language with Igbo language, you are teaching a student, like I'm teaching you now, a programming language, maybe programming with C or C++ with Igbo, I think you will understand it better
Charlie, what
than
do you
the
think?
English. Because when I'm telling you that, okay, you are supposed to do this with Igbo, it will stick in your head. This is defined as this in Igbo. It will stick in your head because you don't even need to go and read much again to understand what I'm asking.
Okay, sorry to interject.
Yes.
Right, I understand what Mr. Luke is trying to say, but
Right.
we have what we call acculturation.
Okay.
Acculturation is like adopting to other people's culture. That doesn't mean you are disseminating your own. You're removing your own culture from your side, your languages and everything. So the
So
reason why
literally
I
what
said-
he's saying is hybrid.
yes, you can balance both.
Okay.
You can balance learning with your indigenous language
Okay.
and also learning with English. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Then I think the suggestion of Mrs. Dede that we should adopt one language is actually, I think we should just put it aside because he is actually saying we can learn the English language and also we can actually study with English language and also study with our local
Language.
dialect. Yeah.
Now, people, we are going to have a part 2 of this very talk show. Probably next week or next 2 weeks, we'll be having a part 2 of it where we'll probably have a conclusion regarding it because this is like a part 1 of it. You can see that the topic is very interesting. So even if we talk from now to tomorrow, we won't exhaust it because we have so many inquisitive questions to still ask them. And clearly they are very, very learned in, topics like this. So, Ms. Dede, thank you for coming today. We're still going to have you next week.
We are done already.
We're actually done. My time is limited. Thank you for coming. Mr. Emmanuel, thank you for coming. And then Mr. Luke, I
Thank
remembered
you.
your name.
Thank
you for coming. Guys, we've come to the end of today's show. There is no wrap up yet because there's going to be a part 2 of it. So until we'll come next week, stay blessed, stay safe. Plenty love from me to you. Bye bye.